Welcome to the SEN in 10 podcast. I'm guest host Darren Clark, and I'm on a mission to spread more awareness. We'll be chatting to educational specialists to bring you inspirational stories and to discuss all things SEN. You can find us on Facebook at SEN in 10, where you can find out more about what we discuss and all our up-and-coming episodes. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you just tell us your name, background, and a little bit about your organisation?
Yeah, so I'm Jo Rees. I'm from the Isle of Wight. My background is actually in primary education. So I initially trained to be a primary school teacher, did that for a few years, but it became apparent quite quickly that I really loved working with pupils with learning differences and additional needs. So I became a SENCO. I was a SENCO in several primary schools on the Isle of Wight. And then the local authority approached me and asked me how I would feel about running a specialist dyslexic provision on the Isle of Wight, like an outreach provision. So I was like, yeah, I'll give that a go. And that meant that I had to do some additional training. So I did the level 5 and the level 7 dyslexia qualification. And I ran this specialist provision. And then when the government changed, we all got made redundant. And I went back into school to become a SENCO, really disappointed because we were actually making quite good progress in terms of raising awareness around dyslexia and that actually people with dyslexia need something slightly different. So I went back and I was a SENCO because I had 3 children under the age of 5 at the time, and then did that for a couple of years, and then 9 years ago actually set up my own company called Another Way Round Dyslexia Support, which was initially just teaching and assessment. But in amongst all of that, I got my own diagnosis of dyslexia and decided that actually dyslexia is really quite misunderstood. So now I do quite a lot of awareness raising as well, keynote speaking. All 3 of my children have got dyslexic profiles. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, really quickly.
Well, I've followed your incredible journey in the work that you've been doing. It's incredible how, on a global scale, you're helping so many people. And I think that's the beauty of it, Jo, in the fact that you'll never really know how many people you've helped and changed. But that's not such a bad thing because there's going to be millions seeing the content and everything you're putting out. Why do you think it being in the sector of, talking about dyslexia, we feel that there is, a lot of awareness around it. Why do you think there isn't that much awareness and we still need to continuously do this?
I think it's knowledge, isn't it? And I do think that the understanding around dyslexia is changing, probably because of social media, because real people are talking about kind of what it is. But I think there are a lot of misconceptions around dyslexia and what it actually is. So I think lots of people, everyday people, still think that it's to do with not being able to read and write at all. And actually, yes, we have difficulties with reading, writing and spelling, but it's so much more than that. We could do a whole podcast on what dyslexia is, but my main thinking is I don't feel like it filters down through teacher training. So I did a degree in dance, drama and English, and I did a postgraduate certificate in primary education. So obviously you do all of your training in a year. So you learn the bare minimum really of how to be a teacher. I think I had half a day on SEN, and that included all neurodiverse needs, maybe a day tops. I don't feel like there's a big enough element in initial teacher training. I can't talk about what there is in the 4-year teacher training courses because I didn't do that and I don't know enough about it. But the feeling I get doing what I do now, going in and out of schools, is that there's not enough knowledge given to teachers during that training time, that bless them, what they know is often through kind of their experience or what they've kind of filtered through, and you don't know what you don't know. I've not met a teacher that's not unwilling to put the recommendations or things that I've suggested in place once they know that that's what those children need. But when I think back to when I was a teacher for those first couple of years, the amount of children I missed because I just didn't know what I was looking for.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's also difficult when we talk about dyslexia, for instance, and we talk about the scale of how someone's dyslexia is. My dyslexia is different to your dyslexia and so on and so on. And I guess that also is really difficult to be tangible about how to help and support. Because, for instance, if I was going to an organization or something and say, what do you need? If I looked at, say, tech or anything else, it may be different to someone else. And I guess that's on top of the misconception of everything else, it does seem like we're almost fighting for some form of clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's why when I deliver kind of awareness training and things to school, I can speak from quite a powerful position because all three of my children have got different dyslexic profiles and it impacts them all differently. And you're absolutely right. What my son needed to be successful is not what my middle daughter needs and is not what my youngest needs. Like, it manifests itself really differently. And I always talk about, my son, he's got really weak short-term working memory, really poor phonological awareness. So his dyslexia is really obvious in his reading and spelling skill because that's the bit that has been really impacted for him. Whereas my youngest, her phonological awareness deficit is there for sure. Her short-term working memory is there, but hers is more about processing and working at speed. So actually she can compensate in a classroom environment. She can compensate with her homework. She's conscientious. She'll spend hours on it, so actually with her, we have to kind of be like, mate, you've spent long enough on that now, like, move on. You need to do something else. Like, don't be so hard on yourself. It's impacted her confidence and self-esteem and her anxiety levels, I think, a lot more. Whereas for my son, he did need that targeted intervention. So you're absolutely right. What one person with dyslexia needs is not necessarily what another person with dyslexia needs. And it changes on your circumstances and your age, I think, as well. Like, what a young child needs is not necessarily what a teenager would need, is not necessarily what a young adult student or adult would need. It depends on what's going on as to how you need to support it.
So beautifully put. It's interesting, isn't it, when the misconception comes that dyslexia is just about reading and writing. When within a few minutes you talked about, really going deep into so many different things that affects, anyone at any age. What do you enjoy most about supporting people with the work that you do?
Because they've got so much untapped potential. You can just see. So often when I look back to when I used to work in schools, you could see the kids that had the light in their eyes but just couldn't get it onto paper. Like, you can see that I've got tingles up my spine. You can just see like they've got so much potential, but they've just got this significant barrier which is stopping them from kind of getting that out. Or the narrative that education is giving them is that, well, I haven't done well in that spelling test, so therefore I'm not clever. Like, therefore I can't have a good job because I can't spell. Or I haven't, like, I've given 110%, but I've still only just managed to reach age-related expectations in my SATs. That narrative that school and education gives them through no fault of their own, but through the testing system, without being too political, reinforces those negative feelings that you experience yourselves. And children in school often don't experience very much success. So for me, it's about educating them that actually your academic intelligence is a really, really tiny, small part of you. And actually, once you leave school, nobody's really, as long as you've got functional reading and spelling skill, nobody's really going to worry about what you've got. Unless you want to follow a particular career, you are going to have to jump through certain hoops. But I can pretty much guarantee you're not going to need 10 GCSEs at grade 9, to do most jobs. So for me, I just love it because you see people feeling empowered and following their dreams, using their strengths, changing their own little patch of the world or what they do because they feel empowered, because they know that dyslexia doesn't need to hold them back.
Jo, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you, and for the work that you do. And every time I talk with you, the energy and excitement and the work that you do is so humbling to see. So thank you so much indeed for your time today. That's
okay. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me. It's been brilliant.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you for joining us on SEN in 10. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can catch all of our episodes at www.senin10.co.uk. You can also find us across social media at SEN in 10. Be sure to give us a follow to keep up with the latest news. And thanks again for listening, and we'll see you again next time.